The man walked into the bank, dressed in a simple gray suit, carrying only a folder and calm confidence. He waited his turn like everyone else, unaware that within minutes, the same people ignoring him would soon work under his authority. As he approached the counter, smiles faded, voices softened, and service suddenly slowed down. The air carried that quiet tension he knew too well, the kind that only appears when color walks into privilege unannounced. They didn't see a client. They saw a test of their prejudice. What none of them knew was that the man they were dismissing wasn't here for a loan. He was here to decide their future. Malcolm Reed was known in the corporate world as a strategist who built success from silence. He didn't announce his wins. He let results speak. From a modest neighborhood to the top floor of a private equity firm, he'd learned one truth. Racism never disappeared. It simply changed uniforms. That morning, he visited a small suburban branch of a bank his company was in the process of acquiring. His goal was straightforward: observe its operations discreetly before finalizing the buyout. He wanted to see how they treated ordinary people, how they handled clients without titles or power. From the moment he stepped in, the atmosphere shifted. The receptionist greeted the person before him warmly, but when Malcolm approached, her tone stiffened. She gestured vaguely toward the waiting area without meeting his eyes. He sat quietly, scanning the room. A couple in business attire received immediate attention. A man in jeans was helped within minutes. Yet Malcolm, patient and polite, remained unseen. When he finally approached the counter, the teller looked him over with a practiced smile that couldn't mask discomfort. She asked if he was in the right place, the kind of question designed to sound innocent but cut deep. He handed her his documents, clearly marked with executive credentials, but she barely looked. Instead, she excused herself to check with her supervisor. Minutes turned into nearly half an hour. The staff whispered near the glass office at the back, occasionally glancing his way. He recognized the scene for what it was, not confusion, but classification. They had decided what he was worth before reading a single word of his paperwork. Malcolm stayed composed. Every pause, every smirk, every delay, he noted it all. What they didn't realize was that the man they were stalling already owned the walls around them. The longer Malcolm waited, the more deliberate the silence felt. The teller avoided eye contact. The manager behind the glass office pretended to be busy with paperwork. Clients came and went, each greeted with cheerful efficiency. Only Malcolm remained invisible in plain sight. He had seen this pattern countless times, the slow erosion of respect disguised as procedure. Racism in its modern form didn't shout. It smiled politely and stalled indefinitely. Yet Malcolm never confronted it emotionally. He studied it, like an analyst observing a market trend. Finally, the manager emerged, wearing a cautious expression. He didn't shake Malcolm's hand. He simply asked what issue brought him there. Malcolm explained in precise professional terms that he was evaluating services for a potential business account. The manager nodded, expression stiff, and replied that such requests required upper-level approval. The irony of those words didn't escape him. He was upper-level approval. The manager dismissed him with a promise of a follow-up email, then turned away before Malcolm could respond. The message was clear: leave quietly. Malcolm did. He thanked the teller, walked out without a trace of anger, and entered his car parked just across the street. There, he opened his laptop and began drafting a report, not as a complaint, but as documentation. Every detail mattered: the timestamps, the staff names, the tone, the looks. He wanted the record to be clinical, precise, unarguable. Within the hour, he forwarded his observations to the acquisition team, the same team that would finalize ownership of the bank chain that week. He added one final note at the bottom: recommend immediate audit of customer service practices at Suburban Branch number 214, field behavior inconsistent with company standards. That single line triggered a chain reaction. Corporate compliance flagged the report. The CEO, already aware of Malcolm's role as a silent partner in the acquisition, took it seriously. Meetings were rescheduled. Internal calls began. The review escalated from a small branch evaluation to a leadership-level audit. Meanwhile, the branch continued its routine, unaware of the gathering storm. The manager joked about entitled clients. The teller laughed, relieved that the issue had left peacefully. But by late afternoon, emails began arriving. The regional director was en route. The staff sensed something was wrong. Computers froze as system updates locked accounts for audit mode. The phones stopped ringing. And across town, Malcolm sat in his quiet office, watching it unfold in real time. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't demanded apology. He had simply held up a mirror. And now the reflection was answering for itself. By the next morning, the branch was in chaos. A black car pulled up before opening hours, followed by 2 corporate auditors and the regional director. Their arrival was unannounced, their expressions cold. Within minutes, they called the branch manager into the meeting room, the same one he had hidden in while ignoring Malcolm the day before. The staff exchanged uneasy glances as the auditors began pulling transaction logs, customer service reports, and security footage. The tone that once filled the room, casual, superior, dismissive, was gone, replaced by silence heavy with recognition. The manager emerged pale, trying to maintain composure as the regional director addressed the entire staff. Yesterday, one of our senior investors visited this branch unannounced. What he experienced does not reflect our standards. His words landed like hammer strikes. Faces dropped. The teller who had stalled Malcolm trembled, realizing too late who the quiet man had been. At that moment, Malcolm entered. He didn't need to speak. The staff instinctively rose from their chairs, stunned. The same man they'd treated like an inconvenience now stood beside the regional director, not as a customer, but as one of the firm's new owners. The manager tried to stammer out an apology, but Malcolm's calm stare silenced him. He said only one sentence. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. Then he handed the director a sealed envelope and turned to leave. Inside that envelope were the recommendations for immediate termination of the staff involved and a restructuring plan to train all employees in professional conduct and equity compliance. The decision was already approved. As Malcolm exited the building, the door that had once symbolized exclusion now closed behind him with finality. The branch that had denied him service was no longer his obstacle. It was his responsibility. Justice had arrived without noise, without anger, and without warning, only consequence. By the end of the week, the bank issued an internal memo announcing new ownership oversight and personnel changes at the suburban branch. No names were mentioned, but everyone inside the company understood. The memo's author, Malcolm Reed, had not only exposed discrimination, he had turned it into a policy shift that would affect every branch in the network. The dismissed employees left quietly, their careers suspended not by scandal, but by accountability. For the first time, they felt what Malcolm had endured for years, the judgment of assumption, the sting of being unseen. Bias had cost them more than a client. It had cost them credibility. The regional director met Malcolm later that week to finalize integration terms. He offered a formal apology on behalf of the institution. Malcolm accepted it without comment. His goal was never personal vindication. It was systemic correction. He wanted to ensure no one else walked into a branch only to be measured by skin before skill. Months passed. Under his guidance, the company launched a new internal program called Service Without Sight, mandatory for all employees, focused on fair conduct, respect, and client neutrality. Complaints dropped. Customer satisfaction rose. The branch that once symbolized silent bias became the model for reform. When Malcolm revisited that branch months later, the staff was new, diverse, attentive, professional. The same marble floors reflected a different kind of light. Not perfection, but progress. He didn't announce who he was. He didn't need to. The system now worked without his presence. He stood near the counter where he had once been dismissed and watched a young teller greet an elderly black woman with genuine warmth. No hesitation, no pause, just service. That was enough. Malcolm turned and left, silent as before. The institution had changed, but more importantly, so had its reflection. And somewhere in that quiet exit lived the truth he had always known. Respect shouldn't wait for power to arrive before it appears.